Imagine this. You wake up one morning and nothing feels wrong, but something feels off. You can't explain it. The coffee tastes the same. The sky looks the same. Your name is still yours. And yet, you feel like you're living a version of your life that isn't quite yours. It's like you stepped into a scene slightly misaligned with your soul. That, right there, is the first glimpse of quantum entanglement in your everyday life, and it's why you're still attached to the wrong timeline. In the quantum world, entanglement means that two particles become so deeply linked that the state of one immediately affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. But what most people don't realize is that this isn't just theoretical physics, it's a spiritual truth. You are quantumly entangled with people, choices, trauma, and even alternate versions of yourself. And when you're entangled with a timeline that no longer matches your evolution, life begins to glitch. You feel stuck, confused, anxious, or even haunted by possibilities that never happened but still feel real. We've all felt it. The lingering memory of a path not taken. The person you almost became. The relationship that almost worked. The dream you abandoned because it didn't seem realistic. Those fragments don't disappear. Energetically, they continue to ripple through the quantum field, and if you're still entangled with them, they pull on your current timeline like invisible threads. You try to move forward, but something keeps tugging you back. Have you ever wondered why it feels like you're repeating the same emotional cycles, even when you've changed everything around you?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
This is where it gets deep. You're not just entangled with people, you're entangled with potential, with possibility, with timelines you unconsciously chose or rejected. And here's the kicker. Your current life, as it exists right now, is not the only version of you that exists. There are infinite timelines branching out from every decision you've ever made. The question is, which one are you feeding with your attention? Which one are you still entangled with because you haven't fully let go? Quantum entanglement doesn't care about time. It cares about resonance. If a past version of you made a decision out of fear, but you never healed the fear, that decision is still active in your field. You may have changed your job, your city, even your friends, but if you didn't shift the frequency of that old choice, you are still vibrating with that timeline. And that's why things don't move. That's why manifestations don't land. That's why healing feels like it only goes so far. You're trying to build a new life from the architecture of an old entanglement. So how do you know if you're still attached to the wrong timeline? Start with your emotions. What recurring feelings dominate your inner world? Is it guilt? Regret? Longing? Bitterness? These are not just moods. They're signals. Emotional signatures that link you to timelines that never fully resolved. And every time you revisit those feelings without transmuting them, you reinforce the entanglement. You resubscribe to a version of reality that no longer serves you simply because it feels familiar. Most people try to fix their problems by rearranging the external world. They change jobs, partners, homes, but they don't realize that the true shift happens in the quantum, the unseen layer of reality where timelines are encoded, entangled, and chosen through vibration. You can't escape a misaligned timeline by running from it. You have to collapse it, and to collapse a timeline, You must stop feeding it with attention, emotion, or belief. You have to starve the version of yourself that's no longer true. Here's a deep question. Are you loyal to your pain because it's familiar? Are you entangled with suffering because it gives you identity? You see, some of us unknowingly anchor ourselves to timelines where we are victims, martyrs, or failures, not because we want to stay there, but because we don't truly believe we're allowed to leave. We think healing means fixing the past. But in quantum terms, healing means aligning with a timeline where the wound never defined you in the first place. The quantum field doesn't operate on effort, but it operates on coherence. The more coherent your frequency, your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, the more you sync with timelines that match your soul's truth. But coherence only happens when you stop splitting your energy. When you stop living in one reality while secretly mourning another. That split is the entanglement. That is what keeps you looping. And the loop isn't life punishing you, it's life asking you to choose again. Now let's get practical. How do we begin to disentangle from the wrong timeline? First, we must observe. Not judge, not react, just observe. When you feel triggered, ask yourself, what version of me is being activated right now? What timeline does this emotion belong to? And more importantly, do I still want to be that version of me? Awareness begins the disentanglement. It doesn't require perfection, just presence. Second, we must reclaim our energy. Every time you revisit a memory with regret, you send energy to that timeline. Every time you fantasize about a version of your life that never happened, you feed it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't dream, but it means you must dream consciously, with choice, with clarity, with sovereignty. You are not a prisoner of your past decisions. You are the observer who can collapse or activate timelines at will. Third, you must declare a new resonance. Speak it, write it, live it. Declare that you are no longer entangled with limitation, fear, or old stories. Declare that you are now aligned with a timeline where you are whole, where you are free, where you are fully embodied in your purpose. This isn't manifestation fluff, it's quantum programming. Your words are codes. Your choices are keys. Your attention is currency. Spend it wisely. But don't expect the shift to feel comfortable. The moment you begin to collapse an old entanglement, your ego will panic. It will try to pull you back into the known. It will whisper, that new timeline isn't safe. Stay here. Stay small. That voice is not your enemy, it's your past self trying to survive. So instead of fighting it, love it, thank it, and let it go. You don't have to destroy parts of yourself to evolve. You only have to stop feeding the ones that no longer align. And here's something wild. When you shift timelines, people around you will feel it. Some will drift away. Others will suddenly reappear. You'll get unexpected messages, strange dreams, serendipitous opportunities. That's not magic, it's resonance. You've tuned your field to a new station, and now everything that matches that frequency begins to arrive. Not because you chased it, but because you became it. So let me ask you again, what timeline are you still entangled with? What story are you still rehearsing in your mind that belongs to a version of you that doesn't exist anymore? You are not here to live in loops. You are here to leap. And that leap doesn't require wings. It requires frequency. It requires surrender. It requires truth. You don't need to know how it all works. You only need to know that your energy is sacred, your choices are powerful, and your attention is magnetic. You are the observer that bends reality, the chooser of timelines, the quantum traveler who can collapse lifetimes of pain by simply saying, I choose differently now. I choose alignment. I choose coherence. I choose me. And when you do that not once, but over and over, consistently, with devotion, you will wake up one day and everything will feel different. The coffee will taste richer. The air will feel lighter. The people around you will seem more awake. And you'll realize you didn't just shift your mindset. You shifted your universe. You stepped into the timeline that always existed but was waiting for you to arrive. Now that you've started to feel the weight of those old timelines, now that the invisible threads are becoming visible to your awareness, you're going to see something surprising. It's not just about detachment from the wrong timeline, it's about why you were attached in the first place. Because attachment doesn't happen randomly. It's a survival mechanism. It's how we build continuity in a world that feels chaotic. But the irony is, what we cling to for safety often becomes the very thing that holds us hostage in a reality we've outgrown. Some of us are still entangled with timelines born from trauma. Not because we love the pain, but because pain was the first thing that gave us identity. When you grow up in chaos, you learn to normalize it. You calibrate your nervous system to unpredictability. And then you wonder why peace feels boring, why love feels threatening, why opportunities feel like too much. It's not that you don't want better, it's that you're still quantumly linked to a version of you that doesn't believe you deserve it. And as long as that version is entangled with your present, it will sabotage your future. Have you noticed how you sometimes sabotage relationships that actually feel good? Or drain your energy chasing things that deep down you know you don't want? That's not just a mindset issue, it's a timeline issue. You're still running scripts from a frequency you no longer resonate with, but you haven't fully dislodged it from your field. And the field doesn't lie. You can say all the affirmations in the world, but if your body is still loyal to a past pattern, the universe reads that vibration, not your words. This is why awareness alone is not enough. You must shift the signal. You must reprogram the frequency you emit, which means doing the deeper, quieter work of feeling what you've avoided, grieving what you've lost, forgiving what you never got, and declaring what you now choose to become. That's not just healing, that's quantum disentanglement. You're not just letting go of people or situations. You're releasing the version of you that kept choosing that reality over and over again. So let's go deeper. Why are some timelines harder to leave than others? Because they gave you something. Even if it was toxic, even if it was limited, it was familiar. The nervous system, the ego, the inner child, they all crave what they know. And sometimes, the timeline you're entangled with gave you a sense of meaning, purpose, or control. It may have been pain-driven, but at least it was predictable. That predictability becomes the prison. And the only way out is to create a new internal reference point for safety, one that exists not in fear, but in truth. You have to ask, what identity am I still protecting by staying here? Are you still trying to prove you're worthy by achieving? Are you still trying to earn love by sacrificing your needs? Are you still trying to feel safe by controlling every outcome? These are the patterns that keep you bound to timelines that no longer serve your becoming. You can't collapse a timeline until you collapse the belief that created it. And that means radical honesty. Not with others first, with yourself. Sometimes the hardest part of spiritual awakening is realizing you've been loyal to a lie. A lie that said you had to suffer to grow. A lie that said you had to earn your worth. A lie that said you had to stay small to be loved. These lies created timelines, and those timelines created lives. But here's the miracle. You don't have to fix what was broken. You just have to stop choosing it. You just have to stop energizing it with your attention, your pain, your repetition. And you know what happens when you finally let go? Reality begins to reorganize. People leave. New ones show up. Synchronicities increase. The air feels different. You start to notice things you never saw before. It's not because the world changed, it's because your frequency shifted. You're now resonating with a different version of Earth, one where your truth is not punished but rewarded. That's not fantasy. That's physics. You've collapsed one timeline and activated another. So let's talk about collapsing. This is not dramatic. It's subtle. Collapsing a timeline might look like finally telling the truth after years of pretending. It might look like walking away from a relationship that's fine but not aligned. It might look like changing how you speak to yourself when no one is listening. These micro movements are massive in the quantum field because they represent coherence. And coherence is the signature of a soul that's no longer split. Let's pause for a moment and ask something sacred. What timeline would open up for you if you stopped negotiating your worth? If you stopped compromising your vision? If you stopped performing for validation and started vibrating from authenticity? You don't need permission to shift. You only need presence. The field doesn't require your perfection. It requires your truth. And when your truth becomes louder than your conditioning, you become the magnet for the timeline your soul came here to embody. Here's something transformative. Timelines are not linear, they are vibrational. That means you don't have to work your way up to a better life. You can jump, you can leap, you can quantum shift by becoming the version of you that already lives in that reality. Not pretending, not faking, embodying. Speak like them, move like them, love like them. Not because you're playing a role, but because you're remembering a frequency that is already encoded in you. And yes, people will notice. Some will celebrate you. Others will resist you. Why? Because your energetic shift forces them to confront their own entanglements. Your liberation will mirror their limitation. And not everyone is ready for that. But that's not your job. Your job is not to stay small so others don't feel called out. Your job is to glow so fiercely that others remember they can too. You're not here to fix people. You're here to free yourself. And in doing so, you become a living permission slip for others. So how do you maintain the new timeline once you've shifted? With practice, with presence, with power. It's not about staying high vibe 24/7. It's about choosing alignment moment by moment. When the old thoughts creep in, you pause, you breathe, you remember that's from the old script. That's from the version of me I've released. And then you gently return to the new signal. over and over, until the new becomes natural. And here's the most beautiful part. You don't have to do this alone. There are others, many others, who are shifting too, who are collapsing timelines, choosing truth, reclaiming sovereignty. And as you align with your authentic frequency, you begin to find them, not through effort, but through magnetism. These are your soul allies, your parallel selves in different bodies. And when you find each other, the field explodes, the timeline stabilizes, the new earth becomes more real. So if you're still attached to the wrong timeline, know this: you're not broken. You're not late. You're not behind. You're entangled because you're human. But now you're aware. And awareness is the beginning of liberation. You don't have to fight the old. You just have to stop feeding it. Give it your energy. Reclaim your power. Choose the timeline where your soul thrives, not just survives. And when you do that, even once, the field responds. Now that you understand the nature of your entanglement, the question becomes, what timeline are you truly meant to live in? Beyond survival, beyond conditioning, beyond the stories you inherited, what does your soul actually want to experience? The truth is, the timeline you're meant for already exists. It's not something you have to build from scratch. It's already vibrating in the quantum field, fully formed, waiting for you to match it. And the only thing standing between you and that reality is your frequency. Not your job, not your relationship, not your past, just your frequency. You have to understand that your reality is not solid. It's fluid. It's energy interpreted by your consciousness. The way you perceive yourself, the meaning you give to your experiences, the emotions you allow to dominate your state, these are the levers that shift timelines. And when you are entangled with identities that were never truly yours, you keep choosing the same future over and over without realizing it. This is why people feel stuck. Not because life is against them, but because they are quantumly loyal to a version of themselves that no longer represents the truth. Let's go deeper into this idea of loyalty. You may not realize it, but you've been loyal to your pain, loyal to the version of you that got left, betrayed, hurt, abandoned. And in that loyalty, you've kept choosing timelines that reinforce the same emotional pattern. It's not your fault. It's how we survive when we're young. But now that you're waking up, you have the power to choose again. You can thank that version of you for surviving, but you don't have to let them keep driving the ship. You can lovingly release them. You can say, "Thank you for getting me here. I'll take it from here." And when you do that, something profound happens. The signal changes. You begin to attract people who meet you in your truth, not your trauma. You start noticing opportunities that feel like a yes in your body. You experience moments of flow where time bends and synchronicities multiply. This is not magic, it's alignment. You've collapsed the old entanglement, and now your field is clear enough to receive what's always been available to you. Not because you forced it, but because you became it. But let's not romanticize the transition. It's not always graceful. Sometimes it feels like your life is falling apart. Sometimes the people you love most don't understand the shift you're making. Sometimes the old version of you screams for attention. That's okay. That's part of the collapse. You are not being punished, you are being refined. You are shedding density so that your light body, your truth, your highest vibrational self can take the lead. This is the part where you have to trust the unseen. You have to walk by frequency, not by sight. You have to let your inner knowing be louder than the noise around you. Because the quantum field doesn't care what things look like, it only responds to what things feel like. And when you embody the feeling of your highest timeline, even before it arrives, the field rearranges to match you. Reality bends, time folds, and life becomes less about effort and more about coherence. So how do you embody that feeling? How do you live from the new timeline before it shows up? You practice, you visualize, you speak as if you already are that version. You make micro decisions that align with the new frequency. You surround yourself with people, spaces, and thoughts that affirm your truth. You create rituals that anchor your new identity into your nervous system. You breathe differently. You walk differently. You trust differently. Because you're no longer waiting for evidence, you're becoming the evidence. And let's talk about what happens to the old timeline once you stop feeding it. It dissolves. Not always instantly, but inevitably. It loses coherence. It becomes harder to access. The emotional weight lifts. The people who belong to that version of you may fade out. And you may grieve that. You may feel a strange emptiness. That's not failure. That's space. And space is sacred. Because in space, something new can emerge, something that actually matches your soul. Ask yourself right now, what version of me am I committed to becoming? Not what version do I hope for, or fantasize about, or chase. What version am I committed to embodying right now through the way I think, feel, speak, and move through the world? Because that commitment is a frequency, and the field responds to commitment, not confusion. The more clear and congruent you are, the faster the shift happens. Not because you're rushing, but because you're aligned. And yes, there will be temptations to go back. The old timeline will whisper in moments of doubt. It will offer you comfort disguised as safety. It will test your patience. And in those moments, you don't fight. You simply remember. You remember the truth of who you are. You remember that you are not here to repeat. You are here to evolve. And sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is say no to the old you and yes to the one who's been waiting to be born. Let's take it even further. When you shift timelines, you don't just change your life, you change your lineage. You heal ancestors who were trapped in the same loops. You liberate future generations from needing to repeat your patterns. You become a breaking point in a cycle that's been running for centuries. That's the power of quantum entanglement. It means that your shift affects the whole web. You're not just doing this for you, you're doing it for everyone connected to you through blood, soul, and energy. And the most powerful thing you can do for the collective is to stay in your truth, not to convince others, not to debate, not to prove, just to live it, walk it, embody it. Be so rooted in your new timeline that your presence becomes a transmission. Be so committed to your evolution that your energy speaks louder than your words. That's how you become a lighthouse. That's how you lead without needing to be followed. So if you've been stuck, if you've been wondering why your manifestations aren't landing, why your healing feels incomplete, why your life feels like a rerun, look at your entanglements. Look at the timelines you're still feeding. Look at the identities you're still loyal to. And then make the most powerful decision you can make in this life. Choose again. Choose from truth. Choose from alignment. Choose from the version of you that already knows the way. Because here's the secret. The moment you choose, the moment you decide with every cell of your being that you are done with the old, the field shifts, the quantum responds, and a new timeline begins to stabilize beneath your feet. You don't have to know every step. You just have to keep saying yes to the version of you that already lives in freedom. That version is not far away. That version is already here, waiting to be chosen, waiting to be embodied, waiting to be lived. You are the timeline. You are the code. You are the one you've been waiting for. And now it's time to arrive.